Oh, hello there, friends. So I wanted to jump on a podcast and talk about something that's really been on my mind here the past couple of weeks. Obviously, with the COVID-19 corona crisis and its impact that it's had on the event industry and small business world as a whole, business owners are now looking to their contracts more than ever. And maybe you didn't review your contract in depth beforehand, and now you are certainly looking at the specific and express language because your clients are now asking you about your contract language. So as a contract attorney who eats, lives, and breathes contracts, I've known all along that contracts are uber duper important for you as a small business owner. And now with this crazy, unprecedented situation that we all face, we are dealing with clients that have hired us and signed existing contracts. And now we're forced as business owners to really look at those contracts in the express language and recognize that legitimate and correctly worded contracts are oh so important. So today I wanted to outline in this episode why you need a legitimate contract. And I want to go over the importance of them, including certain clauses to take an extra look at, the difference between the Legal Paige contract templates and others that you may find out there, why getting a contract from an actual attorney is one of the best things you can do as a small business owner, how to update your existing contracts in the midst of COVID-19, and much, much more. So let's just dive into this, my friends. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about on this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. I am only your attorney when you hire me and we sign an engagement letter for me to work specifically on your legal issues. Please feel free to seek out another attorney in your hometown if you need specific legal advice or contact me for more information. Alrighty, here's the episode, friends. Alrighty, guys. So like I said previously, now more than ever, you as a business owner are understanding, comprehending, and really seeing why certain clauses in your contracts are so important and why clear, understandable, plain language is quite literally the best way a contract should be written. Out are the days of legal mumbo jumbo and legalese, and in are the days of plain language in contracts. You need to make sure that you understand every single clause and you guys really just every word in your contract, because if you don't understand it, then I can guarantee your clients won't either. And that's not good because essentially then there is absolutely no meeting of the minds between you as the business that's providing services and your clients that are hiring you on certain portions within your contract. Now, obviously, the big issue that's come up with COVID-19 is the force majeure clause in everybody's contract. But COVID-19 has also implicated cancellation clauses, rescheduling clauses, and fee clauses. So those four are the big ones that I really want you to take an extra look at right now in your contract. What does your force majeure clause say? What does your cancellation clause say, your rescheduling clause, and just your generic fee clause where it talks about what fees are due upon booking and when the remainder payments are due as well. A few things to note about each. So a force majeure clause deals with performance under the contracts. And most contracts, across the board that I have been reviewing for the past couple of weeks, do not speak to fees under a force majeure event. So it just describes kind of what force majeure events could occur that would initiate kind of non-performance by one or both of the parties. Now, the issue is people are really starting to think that their cancellation and rescheduling policies apply, but really they probably don't, because a force majeure event is totally different. And people are left wondering like, okay, so performance, right? A force majeure clause says that if you can't perform due to a certain force majeure event, then non-performance by one or both parties due to the force majeure event doesn't equal breach of contract. So you can't be sued for breach of contract. But it really says nothing about fees. And that's the big issue. So it's super important to ensure that your force majeure clause now says something about when a force majeure event happens, like COVID-19, an epidemic, or a pandemic. Make sure you list those as specific force majeure events now. And then if you have to terminate a contract or cancel services, or your clients have to cancel the event that you were supposed to perform services at, when that occurs because you cannot cure performance, remember, force majeure clauses have things about notifying someone of a force majeure event, trying to cure performance within a certain period of time, and then you being able to terminate the contract as the non-affected party because you can't cure performance. And right now, we're just in this situation where weddings and events, like you can't cure performance in the next couple of months. Like they just cannot be held. Now, what you really need to do is make sure that when that happens, so they notify, then terminate, they can't cure performance. They're trying to mitigate circumstances, but they can't. And then you need to terminate the contract under your force majeure clause. We're still in your force majeure clause here. The thing that you need to make sure you add at the end of a force majeure clause is something about fees. So I would suggest that you add something along the lines of the retainer and other fees paid are non-refundable, but they will be credited on the client's account for X amount of time. And that's really important for you and your client to understand that even in these force majeure event type of situations, they don't just get to cancel the contract altogether and then the non-refundable retainer or reservation fee never applied and everybody's asking for refunds. And that's not how it works in a force majeure situation. You always have to try to cure performance, reschedule the event. But because all of our contract language isn't expressly stating that, I really want you to make sure that you go into your force majeure clause and state those things regarding retainers and fees at the end of that clause. Because cancellation and rescheduling clauses are different. Now, your fee clause, before we get to cancellation and rescheduling clauses, your fee clause should be at the very top of your contract. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about organization of a contract here. I've said this in previous episodes on the Legal Paige podcast, but I firmly believe that people read, those first 5, 10, first page or two of a contract pretty carefully, or they skim it a little bit more than the bottom of the contract. So those first clauses are super important, and your fee clause should be number one. Fees and retainer should always be the number one clause on your contract. And then right after, I usually have something regarding cancellations, and then I have something regarding reschedulings. And then sometimes I go into coverage and then specific clauses related to the services that you offer. And then at the end of the contract, you of course have those, I call them general provisions or boilerplate language clauses at the end. But I'm talking about the fee clause, the very top clause that says, the client has to pay a retainer and sign this contract to book you on X date and mark off that date on your calendar for your services. Now, make sure that clause says the clients shall pay X amount as a, quote, non-refundable, non-transferable retainer. Then you want to expressly state that the retainer will be considered liquidated damages in some respect, and that's going to differ per contract. But the word liquidated damages here is really important because if you weren't going to perform the services at all and you were just going to cancel the contract or something along those lines, and you have no documentation of what services you have performed, or maybe you haven't even performed any yet, then you can keep the retainer as liquidated damages, not as a reasonable retainer for services that have been performed up to the date of termination. Those are two very different things. So I'm just giving you guys little tiny nuggets of things that you should be doing. Make sure that the force majeure clause has something at the end regarding how the retainer will be credited to client's account within X amount of time. And then the fee clause at the beginning of your contract needs to have the words non-refundable retainer. And you can use as well the words non-transferable retainer if you don't let retainers be transferred within X amount of time. But what people are starting to see is that transferability of retainers is just best for service providers altogether. And you guys know here that I am giving you general legal suggestions and not specific legal advice related to you as a business owner. But generally speaking, I just think transferability for retainers and deposits and reservation fees is just good business practice, which is why I think you should just put non-refundable retainer. And then, of course, make sure you say liquidated damages for retainer purposes. I'm not going to give you express language and exactly what to put in there because you can get those clauses in the Legal Paige shop online, but that's the fee clause and the force majeure clause. So let's talk now about a cancellation clause and a rescheduling clause. I like these to be two different clauses because if your clients want to cancel, they will look at the cancellation clause. And if your clients want to reschedule, they'll look at the rescheduling clause. I want you to lay out the policies, your business policies, under these clauses if your client decides to cancel on their own volition or to reschedule for any other reason than a force majeure event. And that's where this hiccup is coming in, is force majeure clauses really deal with forces outside a party's control, outside a party's own volition to decide to cancel or reschedule. And so people are thinking, well, it's a force majeure event, so now my client's canceling and we need to go to the cancellation clause. And those are two very different things. A cancellation clause and a rescheduling clause is when your client decides to cancel other than a force majeure event, pretty much for any other reason other than a force majeure event. And so because force majeure events are different, your cancellation and rescheduling clause can be a little bit more concrete. It usually says something like a time limit to notify you as the service provider of canceling or rescheduling. Most often, it's around 60 days prior to the event date for your clients to cancel or reschedule and not be obligated to pay the remainder due on the account, but they always forfeit the deposit if they cancel. And then sometimes with rescheduling, it's like twofold. You can choose two ways to do rescheduling. You can either allow rescheduling and then crediting of fees, like within X period of time, they need to notify you within 60 days. And then you can say, well, our policies are, if you decide to reschedule and you do it like within 90 or 120 days of the event, that's great, right? It's beyond the 60-day time limit that's in that clause. Then you can we'll credit your account of all the fees you've paid towards the event date for another 12 months. And you could tack on, say, like a $500 rescheduling fee. So you could have that type of rescheduling policy. You could allow them to reschedule and that you will just transfer credit over, but there, of course, will be an additional fee for the burden that it puts on your business, in for rescheduling. You could add in some type of fee. Or some businesses just have a completely different rescheduling policy that says, nope, I don't allow reschedulings. It's just the exact same as basically a cancellation. And it would say that you forfeit all fees paid as the client and you need to rebook my services under a completely new contract and all the new pricing that I have at that time for any rescheduled event. So you can do both with a rescheduling fee. I always suggest, because just for legal reasons and liability and risk reasons, when we haven't performed all services as service providers, it's best to show that you will allow crediting of fees toward services in the future, and being able to keep those on your client's account for a very specific period of time. And you have the freedom to contract, so you and your clients can agree to that in your initial sign on of the contract for services when you guys, decide to work together. Now, those are the 4 clauses. That was kind of a lot, but I really wanted to go in depth here. Why are legitimate contracts so important, and what are these clauses in the contracts, and what kind of language do you need to have that's super, super clear in each of these? Because after COVID-19, these 4 force majeure, fee clause, cancellation clause, and rescheduling clause are like the biggies that everybody is looking at. Not to mention that safe working environment clause. I've talked about that previously. It's in our protection clause bundle, you guys, and it's in all of our large contracts on the Legal Paige shop. But a safe working environment clause is also one that you may want to look towards adding to your contracts right now, or modifying when you update your existing contracts after COVID and how it's impacted all of our contracts. And we're looking at them like with laser beam eyes right now. A safe working environment clause would allow you as the business owner to say that you will not put yourself in harm's way or in an unsafe environment. And that would be like this, right? If there's a communicable disease going around and you're not comfortable for whatever reason on going and servicing your clients at the event, that you reserve the right to say no. And that's just really good. A safe working environment clause as well deals with if there's firearms or they ask you to do anything illegal, that, they're going to hold you harmless. You're not in breach of contract for backing out and not providing services. So all of those clauses are things that I want you to take an extra look at, like I talked about. Next, I really want to go into kind of the difference between the Legal Paige template contracts and others you may find. I've been getting this question a lot lately, and I wanted to really give you an honest answer. I think it's important for you all to understand where I'm coming from my background as an attorney, as someone who's been in the entrepreneur world, as someone who's been in the event industry world for a long time. And I want to go over this not to brag. Please don't take it as that. I just want to be very, very honest and forthright with you all, because I am an expert at what I do, just like you are an expert at what you do. And I would hire a videographer or a florist or a photographer for your expertise. And I own that feeling that I am an expert, because I've worked really, really, really hard for many years to be a legal expert in the niche of contracts in the event industry. I've been a small business owner. I've been an online business owner. I have been an entrepreneur for almost 9 years. I also worked for a federal judge, so I've reviewed contracts firsthand and helped interpret what the contracts meant legally with 2 differing arguments from opposing attorneys and briefing to that effect, and have worked with the judge to determine the ultimate outcome. And I've read case law to that effect as well. I've also, as I've told you, been a photographer for 8 years in Montana. And then as a, event industry contract attorney, I've read over 500 plus contracts, if not more, you guys. I read contracts all day long. I love reading contracts. Another thing you guys should know is I go to continuing learning education seminars on contract law and on intellectual property law. I've read way too many contract cases, contract books, and helpful secondary sources on contracts. So I am saying all of that to just give you like a big picture look at, why there is and who is the expert behind the Legal Paige contracts versus other ones you may find out there. I would be very, very careful to get contracts from just like an educator in your industry, because it's not going to be backed by an actual attorney and kind of malpractice insurance and all of that stuff. So this all means that our template contracts in our shop are more comprehensive. And please just don't take my word for it. You guys, I've had numerous shop purchasers say the exact same thing. They've said that our templates are really easy to read. They're easy to understand. They're super organized. They're clear and to the point. And they really include legitimately everything you could ever think of clause-wise. I also love using headings that are super clear, bold, and underlined, and then numbering in our contracts so that it's easy to navigate the contracts for not only you as the business owner, but your clients as well. So you can just point your clients to, like clause 3, please look at clause 3, and then it's right there in front of them. I also make sure that I don't use legal mumbo jumbo. And that just means like legalese. Some people think that having all of these legal terms and legal phrasing in contracts makes them more legitimate. It's actually the opposite. Courts don't like that. They don't like contracts that make no sense. And there's a lot of defenses to contracts. If, the opposing attorney, say you and your clients get in a dispute, the opposing attorney is going to look at your contract and be like, that makes absolutely no sense. My clients had no idea what they were signing on to. So I want to make sure, like I said previously, that you as the business owner and your clients understand each and every word of the contract that you're using. I also, in template contracts in the Legal Paige shop, as well as clauses, individual clauses in the Legal Paige shop, I put memos and comments on the side of all of my legal documents. I make them in Microsoft Word, and I want to feel like we are sitting down next to each other, having a cup of coffee, and I'm just hand-holding you through how to use the template document and how to modify it to your specific business practices. I also go over my template contracts time and time again to perfect them. I am a type AA person, as many of my friends have coined me. I want to ensure that they're ready to go and perfect. I also like to make them, dummy proof. I want to make sure that anyone can use them and not just me as an attorney who would understand each and every word. I want you to as well. And then one of the big differences with Legal Paige contracts is I update them often. So anytime I change or edit a template contract or a template clause, all past purchasers get access to those updated contracts. I want the client contracts that you use to be simple. I want you to just stop worrying about the legal stuff because that's not what you're an expert in. You're an expert in your craft, and you should be doing just that. It's all about, like outsourcing and exporting duties. Like you should be doing the $50 to $100 an hour job, and you need to leave the legal stuff to someone else that's an expert in their field. And I want you to feel beyond protected when you buy a template contract from the Legal Paige. And lastly, our promise to you is that the Legal Paige contracts and clauses, like I said, are backed by an actual expert contract attorney, and I legitimately niche down and specialize in that very specific type of contract that you're looking for. So these contracts that we have in the Legal Paige shop are something I work all the time on, and I care so much about. They're like my babies. I love these template contracts, and I love how they can super benefit you as a business owner and just relieve you of all of that stress of like legal stuff, right? Because the connotation of it probably makes your heart palpitate a little bit. Hopefully doesn't give you too many hives, but maybe it gives you a couple. Like, it's just not fun for people to deal with legal stuff, but it's essential and crucial for us as business owners. And we've learned now with COVID-19 that we have to have legitimate contracts, and we want them to be clear. And we want all these clauses that I just talked about to be clear too. And the Legal Paige contracts have all of that. And we've been updating them for the past 2 weeks to make sure all of our contracts are updated and ready to go for COVID-19 purposes and any other force majeure, unpredictable, unforeseeable event that you could see in the future. Because contracts are really there for like what if situations. And we are here to help you protect yourself and your business for what if situations. Now, the next question I want to go over is kind of why are template contracts priced like they are? And I get this question a lot too, and I think people are just like, well, it's a lot more, right? Like your products in your shop are a lot more than, say, my friend who's offering a $100 course that has 6 different modules. And I get it. Everything's priced differently. But I think it's interesting when people don't see the value in a legal product that they're purchasing. So I want to go over kind of why they are priced as they are and why they're still a hella good bang for your buck. So first off, an average attorney across the United States charges anywhere from about $250 to $700 per hour for their work. Now that's average. Some are less, some are more. And all that, hourly range, it differs because the expert you're working with and their abilities factor in to the hourly cost. So partners, like at a law firm, have a higher hourly rate than associates do, et cetera, et cetera. So that is important to know as well. You are paying for someone's expertise and how long they have worked in that very specific niche of the legal world, because all of us as attorneys niche down. Like I could not help you with, family law. I could not help you with environmental law. And I couldn't help you with real estate law or a will and a trust. Like I would send you to a specific attorney who does that. Are you sitting here tuning into this episode thinking, Paige, I really need to update my contract. I don't think my existing contract is going to cut it. Don't worry, my friend. I got you. Right now on Monday, March 30th and Tuesday, March 31st, we are doing a special discount in the TLP shop. So you can go to thelegalpage.com and get 30% off all individual contracts on Monday and 20% off all individual contracts on Tuesday. We're running a special sale right now to help you all out in the midst of COVID-19. Just go to The Legal Paige, that's thelegalpaige.com today and get your discounted products. And then one thing you all need to know as well is attorneys went to school for 3 years after getting a college degree. We had to pay for that education. We had to, get good grades. We had to pass the bar after. And then we have to keep our accreditation in check with the state that we're working in. And we have to continue to track pro bono hours and continuing learning education hours. And we also have overhead as attorneys, right? Like some of us have small practices where we have to pay paralegals and associates and staff. Some people have bigger practices, and all of us have legal malpractice insurance, which is very similar to like actual medical malpractice insurance, where it's very, very expensive. So there's overhead as well. Now, all of that, right? The expertise, how long we went to school, that we had to pass, we had to pay all these things. We have lots of overhead, and we also have malpractice insurance as well as negligence insurance. That is why we should and we can charge as much as we do. That I want you to like kind of wrap your head around that, because people get, they get really uneasy feeling when they see an attorney charging like $250 or $350 per hour. But I want you to know they are not taking home that much. They also have, that is the hourly rate that really keeps the lights on and pays all of their staff as well as pays malpractice insurance that we are absolutely required to have, pays for us, keeping our membership with our state and all of our, continuing learning education credits. All of that stuff is factored into the hourly rate because that's how we get paid. Like we don't have really side hustles. Like we have to charge an hourly rate to get paid for our services. So it's also definitely not just priced that way for like no reason. People are like, oh, because they're, have JD or Esquire after their name, they can charge that much. And so I just wanted to explain a little bit just from my heart about why attorneys charge that much. And I think my attorney colleagues will be happy that I went into depth as well. Now, if you hired an attorney down the street to write you a contract, okay, it would probably take them anywhere for 5 to 10 hours. So I've gone over, $250 to $700 per hour and why it's that much. And then if you have someone work on a specific contract for you, like a custom contract down the street at 5 to 10 hours, you're probably looking at around $1,250 to $7,000 for one contract. Moreover, that attorney that you're talking to might be, like a contract attorney, but I bet they're going to miss clauses that you probably should have because they're just a general contract attorney and they don't understand the event industry world and your specific business and how you run a business on social media and through a website, and how you market to your business and your clients, and how you over deliver and overserve your clients, and, where your contract needs to stand on that. But a template contract from the Legal Paige shop solves all of these problems that I'm talking about on, pricing and like, oh my gosh, Paige, like $1,250 to $7,000 for one contract. Like, who in God's name can afford that? Nobody, you guys, nobody. But a template contract is drafted by an expert attorney. It's been reviewed by multiple industry-specific professionals. I always make sure that I get input from very, very specific professionals. So if it's florist contract, it's been reviewed by florists, at least 2 to 3. And then I get their input, and I do all the updates on the contract with current industry trends and, of course, feedback from these industry specific professionals. And I make sure that your contracts have every single clause you could need, or it's a template contract. So there's versions sometimes of some clauses, like, hey, this industry person does this, so if you do something similar, use this clause. But if you don't and you do it this way, then use this clause. So I make sure I walk you through all of that in template contracts. Now, it's funny because people buy like expert equipment, like laptops, phones, and camera equipment all the time at thousands of dollars because they know their worth. They know that equipment's worth. And you're willing to spend, $1,000 or $2,000 from an expert in your field on like a big, big online course or a workshop that you go to. I want you to just know that legal templates are just like that. They are worth it. I promise you. And one from an actual expert in their field is worth it plus some. I'm not trying to sell you guys on this stuff. I'm just trying to be like, this is why template contracts are priced the way they are. And instead of spending like thousands and thousands on an attorney down the street to draft you something that you may not know even works or is probably going to be missing a few things, you could just spend around $400 to buy a template contract that's pretty darn close to perfect for you. And our template contracts are on average priced around $400 give and take. And the reason that we price those is just I've kind of looked at all the hours that have gone into it. I also want to make it more accessible for you to get access to really legitimate legal documents. I don't want you to feel like you have to go buy them from someone online. Like if you're a photographer and you're buying a template contract from another photographer, just like pause before you do that and really think about, okay, this may have been drafted by like their specific attorney, but there's no expert behind this. It might not be what I'm actually looking for. It's not backed by an attorney, I bet you. And who knows if their business liability would even cover something if something were to happen. You want a template contract that you can use for years as a business owner. And that is why I have made the Legal Paige template contracts and clauses the way they are, and I've priced them the way they are. And you guys know that I told you get access to every update and modification that we do in the future. And that's built into the price. I am not going to charge you extra because that would be crazy. So it's legitimately a huge, huge bang for your buck if you weigh the cost of hiring an attorney versus buying a template contract from a virtual attorney online. And you guys, there's other virtual attorneys out there. You guys know I've had them on my podcast. I love them. They are colleagues to me and they are friends to me. And if you don't want to buy one in the Legal Paige shop, that's totally fine. Just please go buy one from another reputable virtual attorney. And I touched on this, but I want to also touch on it a little bit more on updates to our contracts that are included in the price that you pay during checkout. We made the decision at the very, very beginning of opening the Legal Paige shop online to include all future updates to contracts in the price reflected when you purchase. So I'm not going to be like Photo Mechanic. I know a lot of you have Photo Mechanic. They'll like offer an update and make you purchase the update at like $100. And if you put that into perspective, that makes them like $1.5 million off that update. And lots of tech companies do that. If there's ever an update, you usually have to buy the update. But that's not how the Legal Paige works. I wanted it to be all inclusive. So all updates are included in the price. And usually on average, I've tried to kind of price this out. We could charge probably around $50 to $75 every time we update a contract. Because it takes tons of time to update contracts and clauses. I do the first draft, then my team does about 3 to 5 rounds of edits. And then we get eyes on it from industry professionals again. And then I go back through and we do more rounds of editing. And then we finally perfect it, make sure all T's are crossed, I's are dotted. And then we make the update live. So it's hours and hours clocked for me and my team. And, let me tell you, we also update contracts at least once or twice per year, if not more, depending on the type of contract. Like the wedding photography contract, this year I've probably updated 10 times, and I always just send those out free of charge to anyone who has purchased. So all of that is included in the $400-ish total price that I was talking about on average for our template contracts in the shop. And you guys, those are just full-blown template contracts. So that $400 price on average, that is the price for a complete comprehensive contract that's around 10 pages and includes about 30 to 40 total clauses in the contract, as well as kind of language about the package of your services at the top and signature lines at the bottom. You can get clauses, individual clauses in our shop. If you have an existing contract and you just want to update your contract with, say, like 5 additional clauses, you can buy single clauses in our shop for around $30 to $40. So it's also, like I said, I just want you guys to have access to legal help and legal education and legal templates as easily as possible. Because we as small business owners, like we're not bringing in the dough. Like we don't have expendable money all the time. But what you need to have is a really legitimate contract because you're signing contracts with your clients all the time for the services you provide. And then those contracts have future implications, which we are all now fully aware of with the COVID-19 crisis. And our contracts likely need to be updated after this. And that is why I put together this episode, because I was like, we just need to go over why you need a legitimate contract, how you update your existing contracts, and why it's so important. So before I leave, I just want to talk about updating existing contracts. I've gotten this question a lot in our Facebook community, and people have asked what you should do. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I said, I wouldn't really update existing contracts right now. We're not really sure what COVID-19 is looking like, and it might look a little fishy to your clients that you're like updating these, and maybe they would, have the insinuation that you are just trying to protect yourself and your business. But I have changed my mind quite significantly about that, because no longer are we wondering like what is happening with COVID-19. Like it's happening. And it's impacted our entire event industry for the next, I'd say, 2 or 3 months. And so with that being said, I think there's no better time than now to update your contracts that you have with your clients. I think it's going to make you look like a way, way, way more professional business owner, to be ahead of the curve, ahead of the game, and be prepared to be like, I've spent the past week or 2 working with clients, rescheduling and canceling, events. And I just want to serve my clients super well. As a business owner, I have taken it upon myself to really read through and look at my contract and what needs to be a little bit more clear, what needs to be modified. I made sure to add in, how we're going to handle force majeure events in the future if it were to ever come up for you as a client. And all you got to do is be really, really clear and honest and upfront with your clients on why you updated your contract. You guys, we do it all the time. We do it all the time in the business world. Businesses update their contracts constantly, right? Like you get on your smartphone and then it's like updated terms and conditions, please accept here. We do it all the time. And we, for some reason in the event industry, we're having a hard time like coming to terms with and grasping like, what are our clients going to think if we update our contracts now with all of these things? they're going to be fine. They're going to totally sign on to an updated contract as long as you point them to the updates that you made. Just be very forthright and tell them, I updated clause 3, 5, and 7. Take an extra peek. Make sure that those updates serve not only you as the business owner, but also protect your clients. You guys know I believe in two-sided contracts. And so now is the time. And also we as business owners have a ton of time on our hands. We have the couple hours or day to sit down and really work on the back end of our business, get new contracts that are updated and ready to go in our CRM systems for future clients. Now's the time. Now's the time to update your contracts. I could not see a better time but now to do so. Because of that, you guys, I am doing something that I don't ever do. And you guys know this because I've only done one sale a year, and that's Black Friday. We sometimes do a mid-year sale, and we may still do that this year, but honestly, I was like, we need to do it now. Like, everybody needs contracts now. They need a sale now. Lots of people are in, financial stress, but the one thing that they need to be in, to hopefully not end up in bigger financial stress in the future, is a legit contract. And they need to update their contract so they don't lose out on refunding retainers in the future because they didn't have the ability to update their contracts now and work with their clients at the get-go versus reacting to a situation in the future because you just decided to stick with what your existing contract said. So we here at the Legal Paige have decided to discount all of our full template contracts in the Legal Paige shop for 2 days only. So on Monday, March 30th, we are having 30% off all single contracts in the shop. And this discount only applies to the big contracts that we have, because I really want you to be able to just purchase and use a full-blown updated contract for your business. I don't want you to spend any extra time trying to piece together your contract or add in any clauses. So 30% off on Monday. And then on Tuesday, March 31st, 2020, it'll be 20% off all contracts in the shop. You guys need these contracts now. You don't need them in 2 months. You don't need them in 8 months from now on Black Friday. Like, I want you to have access to these at a discounted price. And I went over why I price template contracts like they are. I fully believe in the price that we have on our website, but this is my heart right now, and I am not trying to do this for any purpose other than I want all of you who maybe had a hard time in the past 14 days when you went onto our shop and you were like, I just can't swing $400 for a contract. Maybe you could swing it for 30% off, because I've kind of gone through on this episode why it's so important that you have contracts that are legitimate and comprehensive. And now we're offering a sale in the Legal Paige shop, which rarely happens. And we're just doing it now because I was like, people need it. I've been getting emails on the frequent, hey, Paige, are you going to do a sale? Are you going to do a sale? Are you going to do a sale here in the next week? Because I really need a contract. So here I am, the Legal Paige shop. Just go to thelegalpaige.com. That's Paige, and it's a play on words. My name is Paige. So thelegalpaige.com, and you can just click around. You can click on contract templates, and then we've got different contracts for photographers, for wedding vendors, for bloggers, for wellness professionals, like online coaches and life coaches. And then we have others as well. Like some of you who may be social media managers and virtual assistants and those type of things would be in kind of the other small business category. So we have full contracts, you guys, in the contract templates under the Legal Paige shop. And you can find those, and they are 30% off on Monday and 20% off on Tuesday. And then we're closing the doors to all discounts. And we may run another discount probably come Black Friday. We do that every year, which you guys know about. So I hope that helps many of you. If you've previously bought contracts from us in the past 30 days, We unfortunately aren't going to honor those prices, but now you can get in and get your second contract that you wanted at a discounted price. We're just going to try to make this as fair as possible across the board. I wanted to open up this discount to everybody at one time. So, and I also really, really wanted to help people that weren't able to purchase previously. And this might be an avenue for them to get updated contracts at a discounted price. So please know my heart behind this. It doesn't apply. You can't get like a refund if you purchased here within the past week or so, but you can get a new contract at a discounted price, like I said. So that's it. I think that's all I really wanted to say on our sale that's going on. Again, it's March 30th and 31st. That's it. We'll close the doors on Tuesday at midnight. If you guys have any other questions related to having a legitimate contract, certain clauses that I want you to take an extra peek at, remember the force majeure clause, fee clause, cancellation clause, and rescheduling clause. The difference between TLP contracts and others you may find out there on the internet, why I really stress the importance of getting an actual attorney behind the template contract that you purchased, and really finding a virtual attorney that you love on the internet that you trust and purchasing template contracts from them versus just industry professionals that may or may not have a contract that's really going to work for you and has the legal backing to produce that type of shop product on their website. And then I want you to know that you can update existing contracts right now in the midst of COVID-19. It's super important to do so. There's no better time than now than to update your existing contracts. So you guys, again, I welcome you to our discounted contracts this week. It starts today, Monday, March 30th, for 30% off for 24 hours. And then tomorrow, we will reduce that to 20% off on March 31st. And then we're going to close the doors to the discount. So go to thelegalpaige.com, get your contracts now at a discounted price. And please join the Legal Paige community on Facebook where we can continue this conversation and, work through all of these things with COVID-19 and this unprecedented situation that we face together. I am here for you. I am the lead attorney and the owner of the Legal Paige, but I'm also in it with you. I have had weddings get canceled. I am still photographing and shooting. I'm also a bride-to-be. So I just have a very interesting perspective with everything that's going down. And I feel, and my empathy is coming from various perspectives. So just join the Legal Paige community because we're all really working through it together. And I think it's a really awesome group of small business owners online. And I welcome you. I invite you. Go to thelegalpaige.com again for the sale that we're running this week. Thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. And I will see you all. Well, not see you, but I will talk to you all next week. Same time, same place. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpaige.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.